before. Oh, there we go. I think most of you have heard my presentation before, so I don't want to do the full things, which is why it's not in slideshow mode. I figured I would just sort of skip around and skip some of the slides that are not important for you or you clearly know already as agents. Um, and I will send this to Susan. There's a video here that you can use with students. It's a little dorky, but it talks about why it's a great place to study. Anyway, my name is Cynthia. I think probably Susan, was it 2 years ago that we did this? I think it was 2 years ago, right?
I think it's last year.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? Okay, last year. Um, anyway, my name is Cynthia. I've been at Shoreline for 20 years. I've been advising, academic advising, and that's what my main role is at Shoreline for 25 years total. Um, I guess I'm getting old. I don't know. It's like I've been doing it for a really long time. And those 20 years at Shoreline, I have really loved to learn to love Shoreline. Shoreline is an amazing place. Um, so I'm going to start with the updates. For those of you that know everything already, you can a little bit tune out after this slide because this is where all the new things are. Um, First thing is students can live in the dorm if they're 16. In fact, we decided to require it for all 16 to 18-year-olds so that we can keep an eye on the students a little bit closer. We increased the number of staff that are living in the dorm. So there'll be 5 resident assistants plus the resident director who supervises them. And then also the payment systems have changed a little bit, that's a little bit in the weeds, but if you need to know about that, it's not monthly. Sometimes parents will say, well, do I have to pay it all up front or do I pay it by the quarter? Everything at Shoreline is by the quarter now. We don't have any monthly payments anymore unless they live off campus, and that would be completely different. Our high school evaluations, high school completion is one of our most popular programs, especially with Indonesia. The high school evaluations are free and they're done in-house. They take a little longer because the advisor that's doing it kind of tries to balance it between her other academic advising duties. And some of these I think might be similar. Scholarship process is still the same because I think I probably told you that it had changed. It's first come, first serve, but it's merit. And so students have to apply using an essay. They can use an essay by video or by writing, like a written essay. And it ranges from $500 to $2,000, but the money is first come, first serve. So it runs out pretty quickly for the good students that we have that are applying. And then you may have heard that we had 14 students that got into UC Berkeley last year. We don't have all of the data written up yet for this year, but we did get somebody into UPenn, which is very unusual. UPenn is considered Ivy League. And the joke is that her name was Ivy. So Ivy got into Ivy League for nursing, actually. And nursing has become one of our most popular majors. Computer science is kind of dying. AI has created a storm. Computer science was so competitive. Even 1 year ago, everybody wanted computer science, and students are backing out of those computer science majors and like changing them into something more like informatics or even things related to AI. Those majors haven't even been developed yet. So the world is moving really quickly, and those changes are coming about. But information science, electrical, and computer engineering, they're all still really popular. But pure coding, it's just not as popular as it used to be. And part of that's the job market. Okay, so this is what you've all been waiting for, those regulations. Um, First of all, I will say, and I'm not going to go into depth because I'm not certainly not the expert for the visa regulations, but the one thing that I will say is the news is almost always wrong don't listen to the news. Almost always it's wrong. They are using the wrong vocabulary. Um, they're saying that the visa regulations have changed. The visa regulations are exactly the same. Nothing's changed about the visa regulations. Um, the F1 student regulations for the I-20 and for the duration of status, which means that the amount of time that they can stay in the US has changed only because they might, if they need longer than 4 years, they have to get an extension through the government rather than through our office. Um, and we feel that if students are doing the right thing and they're following their study plan and they're making progress, academic progress, that those are immigration's terms, that they won't have any trouble with that. We also learned, because we're still learning, this is just recent. July 17 is when they published a 500-page document that we were supposed to instantly interpret. We've also learned that if students come to Shoreline, for example, and they go home, that their clock starts over. They're given another 4 years. And so that not very many students will actually need to get an extension for that duration of status for that limit of time. I don't really think it's going to affect many students. One thing that's different that I think actually will help us and help you, um, students who come in their first quarter and they never intended to stay at Shoreline, for example, and they wanted to instantly go to another college, they're not allowed. And that's to avoid students coming to the US just to stay in the US and to immigrate and not really be serious students. So I think that's a good change. We don't want those students. We don't want to be responsible for that and take that risk at Shoreline to be shut down or anything. So, and it will eliminate the community college hoppers, we call them, where a student does, maybe 1 year or 2 years at one community college and they're not successful, so they transfer to another community college, and 7 years later, they don't even have an associate's degree. I mean, those are not the kind of students that we want in the US. We want students who are going to be successful and don't have an intention of immigrating. So, um, one other thing is that students cannot do two of the same degree. So it's tricky at Shoreline because we have a nursing program, which is an associate's degree. And students sometimes, or used to actually always do two associate's degrees, one in pre-nursing and then one in nursing, and then frequently went on to do a bachelor's, a RN, we call it an RN to BSN. They can't do both associate's degrees. So we just have changed the way that we talk about it with the students and save that one required multicultural class that so that they never take it and it's not needed for nursing, and then they can get their nursing 2-year degree, their associate's degree. That is by far, I think, our most popular program right now is nursing. Nursing has exploded. Honestly, I have no idea why. And I think the visa officers, when students go to the consulate, they're a little bit leery of students applying for nursing programs because they know in Asia it's not a very good career, and there might be that intent to immigrate. So um, it's a concern, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say. Um, but it is a great program. And students, at the end of this, if there are people that are really interested, I kind of made this diagram about the progression of the nursing program and getting an RN to BSN at University of Washington afterwards. So any anything else? Just don't listen to the news. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is just don't listen to the news. The news gets the vocabulary wrong. They're scaring people. And right now is even scarier because the US embassies overseas, many of them are closed right now because of a different issue with immigrant visas. And the immigrant visa situation has in the process of changing. And honestly, I don't know very much about that. I just know that they're closed because they're trying to figure out what to do. But it doesn't have anything to do with studying in the US and F1 visas or F1 status. Um, And after that, I probably don't even want to talk about that. This should have been up above, but we haven't had food at Shoreline. We had food trucks that rotated because we lost our vendor during the pandemic because there weren't enough students to buy food. And we've had a lot of trouble getting a new vendor to come in and open a cafeteria, an actual full serve cafeteria. We finally found one. And there's a lot of updating they need to do in our kitchen and sometime during fall quarter, probably October-ish, they'll be opening a new cafeteria. And the great thing about that is there probably will be meal plans available for the students who are living in the dorm. And especially since they're 16 to 18-year-olds, some of them won't be able to cook or won't know how to cook. And they have the kitchen, but they'll also have the option to do a little bit of both. And so having those meal plans and having a meal service available is great. And food equals community. And I think it will, we already have a great community, but I think it'll actually help even more. So, so I think I'll stop there for a minute. Are there questions about those new things? Probably visa questions. I don't know how many of those visa questions I can actually answer, but I will try. When it all happened, I was actually in Jakarta and I completely freaked out because it was going so fast and I didn't know what to do and how to catch up. But Shoreline actually has had a few sessions for agencies and for students and for parents. And we are kind of, I don't know, leading the whole area, the Seattle area, and trying to make sure that everybody understands. And some other community colleges have been coming and listening. We have an expert on our staff. She used to be the trainer for all of the immigration, the F1 immigration rules, and she trained me. So that's more than 20 years ago. So she's been doing it for a long time. She knows a lot about it. I'm grateful because I don't like it. It's not, I really don't like immigration stuff. Ugh. So, okay, no questions? Well, then I will kind of slide through some of the slides talking about numbers. Numbers have changed a little bit. We are under 600 now. Um, Indonesia is probably going to be, the numbers are still sifting for this year. For our new fall intake, Indonesia is number one. We have 26, 27, 28 new students from Indonesia, which is fantastic. Indonesian students are getting their visas. We've only had so far this year one student be denied, and I don't like the reason, but I think kind of the agency and I talked and we kind of understand why. Um, the student had just exactly enough on the bank statement, but not any extra. And I think that the visa officer was a little bit worried that she wouldn't have enough for the second year. Uh, I think that's kind of biased, but that's my American view. So, yeah. Um, and I think probably we have less than 60 countries now, so the numbers are, a little bit down. Some of the countries aren't able to get visas. Places that are surprising me, like Vietnam is having a really hard time with getting visas, and Hong Kong. Today we had like 4 students denied. So I just can't predict. I have no idea what's going on. But luckily, you guys don't have to worry about it. And it does take longer to process the visa to get the appointment. They're looking at social media still, just like last year's new regulations. They're checking. They want students to make all of their accounts public so that they can see them, so that they can go in and make sure they're not doing anything crazy. And you guys know all about community colleges. Um, I don't think there's anything there. Um, 2+2. I'll talk more about 2+2 and the advising, but 2+2 sounds really easy. It's very complex, actually. It's very difficult for students to understand what exactly the credits are that they need to transfer, which is why they need a good advising system, which I think that's the reason why Shoreline is one of the really good places. All of us have a lot of experience. I feel like we're getting old. If we all retire, we're going to be in trouble. But we all know those things. A lot of the transfer requirements are in our heads, and so we can really help the students and guide them step by step through the process. And our students have transferred all over the United States to over 200 different universities. There are 5,000 universities in the United States. Um, they really can't go to the Ivies, although things keep surprising us. We had a student go to Haas School of Business for the first time, and UPenn recently, and all the 14 students that went to UC Berkeley, which is kind of crazy. This is another graphic of other places. We did have two students 2 years in a row go to Barnard College, which is affiliated with Columbia, which is also Ivy League. But they weren't actually accepted to Columbia. They were accepted to Barnard, but they were taking classes on Columbia's campus. So to the students, they were boasting they got into Columbia. To me, it's like, that's a little tricky. We still have transfer admission guarantees, although Arizona State now has become a pathway program. And so students should be able to go very easily to ASU in the major that they choose. And it includes the major, not just the university, like many of these other schools. Okay. Nothing has changed for ESL. Scores are the same. I want to point out something that I've realized recently that I think is important. Um, at Shoreline, our high school completion program, students usually finish it in the first year, and that's important because if they finish it in the second year, like some of the colleges in the Seattle area, it means they have to apply as a freshman rather than applying as a transfer. It doesn't mean that the transfer credits won't that those credits won't transfer, but it means that they have a much more selective process that they have to enter into, and they probably need SATs or ACT scores. um, the transfer process is much easier. The essays are less, and so it's important that you understand the difference. We think it's much better for the students to apply as transfer students. I think I've talked about Shoreline having an honors college before. The honors college, I believe, is one of the reasons that some of those students got into UC Berkeley last year. Not as many students enrolled this year. I'm not sure why. I kind of feel like every other year we have a really good batch. And I've been feeling that for a long time. I have no idea why, but let's see this spring. Let's see what happens. Anyway, the great thing about this is they can do a 1-year research track. If they're pre-med or any field that needs research, this is a great opportunity for them. It is a little bit more expensive. It's I think right at $299, $300 per quarter extra. But they have much better opportunities, I think, smaller classes. Okay, skip, sorry. Location is still amazing. I would say that's one of the top reasons that students choose Shoreline. We are north of Seattle, and we now have light rail that goes right down this yellow line, which is our big freeway. And the light rail is kind of even with it. University of Washington is on the way to downtown Seattle. So it's really a great location. Students sometimes even stay and live in Shoreline. Now with the light rail, it goes directly to the University of Washington. It actually makes it really close. And of course, it's a lot less expensive near Shoreline than it is in downtown Seattle. and feeling very glad to be in the other Washington, not Washington, D.C., on the other side of the world, far away from our government. And nowadays, sometimes the parents will say, "Wow, your government," and I'll say, "Wow, your government." I mean, really, the world is kind of a mess right now. A lot of the governments are a little scary, and so I think honestly, in the U.S., it's not really any different than it's been. Um, I, I was in Indonesia last year, and I think it was in the last fall, last October. And I watched the news and I got all freaked out because the news is terrible. Don't watch the news, honestly. I watched the news and I came home and I was driving down the street and I was kind of looking around, like waiting for something to happen. And it was just like nothing had ever happened and it was just completely normal. And those perceptions can be really changed. So if the parents ask you those questions, you can say, it's just like normal. If you're in Washington State and you're on the West Coast over here where we are, not in the East Coast where the government and Trump are, here we're fine. Nothing's been going on. So that's a 6 hour plane ride to get to the other side of the United States. Okay, we're still in the top 20 of colleges with community college or with international students, and that's important only because I don't care how many numbers we have. I care that we are focusing on international students and putting our resources into services for international students and taking good care of them. Um, Seattle is still a great place. Students fall in love with it, and we had one student actually who got into NYU this year, and she didn't go. She stayed. She wanted to go to the University of Washington because the University of Washington and Seattle are fantastic. And it's such a strong network with the Indonesian students in the area with Permias. Permias is an Indonesian government. You guys probably know what it is, like organization for all of the colleges in the area. And Shoreline students are frequently in the leadership team of Permias. And it's just really pretty amazing. And Shoreline is definitely has the highest numbers of Indonesian students, which is great for students because they have lots of students to choose to be friends with, and it's not too high. I think I don't know the final number, but 26, 27 new students, probably we had 60 and then about 30 graduated. So I think we'll probably be almost exactly as we were last year, about 60 Indonesian students again this year. That's my guess. Okay, back to advising. Advising is still the same. Everybody knows a lot. The least amount of experience is 10 years. We all have special tasks. This is Ginger who does the F1 regulations for pretty much everyone in the Seattle area. She's definitely an expert, so the students are going to be safe, and we will make sure that we're doing the right thing and following the rules. Um, our high school coordinator is Jessica. Our evaluator is Kanchana, and I'm the outreach person. That we all have kind of that extra task. John is kind of I would say, Gal Friday, who does a lot of other things, lots of little things. So all the students still have assigned advising. Still, we have new student appointments to make those academic plans, which are super important for the students. Campus pictures are pretty much the same. I started pointing out that the reason our name is Shoreline is that we're right by the shoreline, literally. It's very close. This is our dorm. We have two new buildings. We have a new music building and we have a new STEM building. So all of our labs are state of the art, chemistry, physics, all of the different biology, they're all really good labs. And a lot of our students are STEM, engineering and business probably are the top two. As I said, computer science is kind of falling, and that nursing is wildly popular. So yeah, I don't know. Suddenly it's just super popular. These are old pictures, and I will send this to Susan. If you want to take time to look at the pictures, you can. All the different activities and sports that we have at Shoreline. Shoreline has very high level of engagement. Students are able to get that leadership experience that they need to be able to transfer to the university, because when they apply to the university, grades are the most important, but they also need extracurriculars. And they also need a good essay. So they need like kind of all of those things. And they can do sports, leadership, student government. And then Seattle, not much has changed about Seattle. Original Starbucks is there. The students are always interested in that. All of our coffee comes from Indonesia, which is really funny. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Colombia too, but yeah. Um, it's just a gorgeous place. These are great opportunities for OPT, for students to apply for their optional practical training after they graduate. There is a shorter period of time where they have to find a position, but we just are going to be working carefully with students to plan ahead. This age group is not very good at planning ahead, and so we just need to get them to do that and start applying earlier. They just can't work until they get that card, but they can always apply to get the jobs. Some of our wraparound services. We have a week-long orientation. We still have transfer fairs. It's just like a big expo with all of the universities coming and talking about transferring to their universities, scholarships, all the different possibilities there. And these are some activities that our students have done. We still have student leaders. Um, this is this year's group of student leaders. The marketing assistants have changed. The international student ambassadors have changed to being more before students come. So if you have a student who's interested, we can connect you with one of the international student ambassadors, and they can have a conversation with the student. And the student that we have from Indonesia this year is Mila. She's from Bandung and she's on our basketball team. And the international student leaders are more on the ground, helping with orientation, for current students, working on programming and liaison with other students, the international students in general, and the resident students, American students. And this is a selective leadership position. It's an opportunity for students to aim for. It's close to $20 an hour, our minimum wage that they're paid. It's hard to get the job, but if they get the job, it not only goes on their college application as a great experience, it also is a part-time job, and it's a good pay. Uh, we have around 60 clubs and organizations. They change every year. I don't change the list anymore. I realize that it depends on the students that are there. Sometimes there's a professional ukulele player or something, kind of oddball. So they start a club. So there's a kind of a variety of different kinds of things. Always, the Indonesian student community is very strong. Our international club is very strong. Things like the engineering, like the major clubs, engineering club and computer science club are also very strong. So, and if they don't, I think one of the best opportunities is if they don't find the club they want, they can start their own club. They just write a constitution and find 5 members to start with, and they present that to the student government. And if they're approved, they get $500 and they have to maintain their budget for the club. And it looks great that they've started that club. And then they're the leader, they're the president or the vice president, depending on what they decide amongst those 5 people. Let's see what else. Sports, I have not updated this, and that should have been in the updates. We now are adding junior varsity sports, so more students would be able to come to start playing sooner, because sometimes they're not good enough and they get benched as we call it in their first year because they're not as good as the varsity players. So if you have an athlete for the men's soccer, basketball, and baseball are the three sports. And we've had women athletes recently on the volleyball team and the basketball team. I don't know anybody on the softball team, but or the soccer team, but it can happen. So, and there's possible scholarships involved. So if they're really good, they can get uh, I it says, I mean, technically 1680 per year, which is not a lot actually. Every little bit helps, right? Students can still start every quarter. These are the new dates. The next possible intake is January. December 28th actually is the orientation. So our orientation is required. Students have to come and participate in it. We feel very strongly that students need to be there. They need to participate and make friends and build a really solid support network with each other. And of course, the other things I feel almost are secondary, learning the systems, the insurance, the immigration, all of those, sort of serious matters, but really it's important for them to meet other students and build a support network. And then the housing, we have a new name for our dorm. It was called 7,000 Campus Living for the first few years, and now it's finally has a name, Alder Residence Hall, and shortened to Alder Hall. It's still clean. It's still really nice. The fact that it's right next door to our building is fantastic because it's so close. And students have different configurations that they can choose. And I mentioned earlier, they have a kitchen. And then they'll have the option of buying food next door at the cafeteria. And if we look at this, this shows our office. That's where the student government is, the cafeteria, the international education department. So everything is basically there. It's less than 1 minute to walk from the dorm to our building. And less than a minute to get to the bus stop. They can just run out the door if they want to go to downtown Seattle. This is the bus number 5 that goes downtown Seattle. They can use the bus to get downtown and they can also use light rail. And one of the great things about Seattle is all of the transportation until their 19th birthday is free. They don't have to pay to get on a bus or on light rail. It's all free, funded by the government. On their 19th birthday, students tell me they don't check. But I won't encourage that at all. I'll tell you that, but it's not very expensive anyway. And there's a dorm tour here that you can use if you want. The prices are now paid quarterly and they're incorporated into our enrollment system. So students can they all pay the same way for everything, which is great. They don't get confused about how to pay one thing or the other. Everything is paid directly to in the CTC link system, it's called. And these are the different floor plans that students can choose from. Most students are choosing this one, which is 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, where there are 4 students. Students all have a private room. They have their own room, and there are 2 bathrooms to share between the 4 people, which is actually not terrible. When I was in university, we all shared rooms. There was always more than one person in a small room. So these students have it good. I don't think they'd ever do it, actually, to be in a room with another person like that. And then when I send this, you can click on the link and see what the floor plan looks like. So you can kind of get an idea. They're all a little bit different. We still do have homestay, and I think it's coming up. This is the food service we're getting. It is nationally used for other universities as well. So they're experienced at university food service. So I'm hopeful. The food trucks were great. but I think this will be better. It will be so much easier for students especially. Students can still live in a host family. Um, However, so there's an exception for them if they don't want to live in the dorm, if they feel like it's too expensive. And honestly, the host families are less expensive and house share is the most popular. We seem to have alumni that live around the area and they just have bought houses and um, then they encourage students, they only allow international students, usually only Indonesian students to live in those houses and it's much less expensive. Sometimes they have an Indonesian mom who makes rice. It's kind of a variety of different levels. And then our price point has gone up just a little bit to 25.5. It's the typical 3% increase every year. I wish it never went up. And I just realized I didn't change this slide. So this slide is not different. These are last year's prices, but you can still see the comparisons and how much money that students can save by going to Shoreline for 2 years. And they can save that money and use it here. And really, honestly, like international school in Indonesia is usually anywhere from about the same as Shoreline or higher, right? So they can, if they come and do high school completion, they can save like $50,000 just in the high school part because they're not paying that tuition. And our cost is about the same as international school, and this is including their room and board. So the parents are able to save quite a lot of money, and then they can afford NYU and Berkeley and these expensive universities. It just makes it a little bit more affordable. I talked about the scholarships already a little bit. These are some of our successful students. This was last Christmas. After the big group of students moved to Berkeley, I went there for Christmas, but the problem was I went there for Christmas and they were all having their finals at the same time. So we only got 7 of the students to come and have a little Shoreline treated them to pizza, have a little reunion, but it was fun to see them and to take the picture. And then other places that are famous that students have gone to, Michigan for computer science. Lots of students in the past, even before those 14, have gone to Berkeley. This one was data science, and this one was computer science. Computer science at Georgia Tech. They beat the sudden change of computer science not being so popular. Um, Brittany, I feel like is kind of famous. She graduated from the University of Washington. She did a business information systems, which is considered a STEM major. She was able to work for 3 years at Microsoft after she graduated from the University of Washington. And then she came back to Indonesia and worked for about another year at Microsoft. And now she has a really great marketing position in Butter Baby. And I don't know if you've heard of Butter Baby, but it's a new donut company owned by Tory Burch's sons, twin sons, which is kind of a fun story, I think. She's done some of the marketing. It's all about the butter, baby, and I can just hear her saying that, which is so funny. So, Stanley also did very well and did a 3-year optional practical training at Amazon. Amazon is like Shopee. It's very popular. And he was an informatics major, and he worked for Amazon, which is a business. So it's interesting that he worked for the business and she worked for the computer science company, even though their majors were kind of opposite. And then this year, Tessa from Bandung went to UCLA. And these two are also from Bandung. Jessie is a nursing student at Seattle University. And Crystal is at the University of Wisconsin. Biology. Um, Alyssa, Alyssa is from Jakarta, and she's doing biology at Berkeley. is business at UCLA, or actually it's econ. And this is our famous Ivy who went to Ivy, who went to University of Pennsylvania. And then the rest of these, I'll send them, but these are all old, but it just gives you some more stories. If parents are asking you questions, you can um, show them. Maybe they want to see the different success stories. And the only other one I'll show you is this one because she was so disappointed that she didn't get into a good school for computer science. She went to the University of Washington Bothell, which is a side campus, and she did really well. She's still working for Microsoft. So I think it really doesn't matter what the ranking is, especially if they're in the US. There are so many opportunities. Everything's meant to be. And students will do well no matter where they go. And then thank you for coming. You can contact me on line if you are sorry, this is line, this is WhatsApp. WhatsApp is Indonesia. If you have questions, you can always contact me and I can answer those, especially those academic questions that are hard to answer.
Okay.
Well, I feel like I talked really fast, but now it's perfect timing for 15 minutes of questions, right?
Yes, it is perfect, Cynthia. Oh, okay, okay. We got the questions. Hi, I'm new here. Can you explain to us the admission process for Indonesian, like academic requirements and everything else? Thanks.
Good question. Okay, I am going to go to our website and talk about it. It's super easy. Um, and I can put this link in the chat. Going to the website and just going directly to international education, and then, oops, apply to Shoreline. And then the steps are here. Because we are a community college, we have what's called open enrollment, and we're required by law to let everybody in, basically. We can't restrict who can enter. Um, Basically, they just need the international student application. If they come through Yes Education, they get a free application waiver. They don't have to pay the fee. They need to submit their most recent transcripts. Usually it's high school transcripts. And then the bank statement, the financial certification that they have enough funds to study for 1 year. And like I said earlier, probably they need a little bit more than that because I think that that was the reason that that other student was denied. And then recommended is proof of English proficiency. Indonesian students usually have no trouble with that. Most of the students are doing very well in English, the ones that are interested in coming. I recommend Duolingo, and if student is decided to apply and they don't have English proficiency yet, we can get them a waiver for Duolingo coupon. We just have to email it directly to them. That's it. I mean, super easy. We don't have any deadlines. Probably the best thing to do, I think at least 3 months. Earlier is better right now because although I'm not afraid of any of these new things that are happening, it takes longer. So just allow a little bit extra time to get the appointment and the visa process finished.
Okay, maybe you could explain a little bit about the financial certification.
Yeah. So this is the number that is in the it's just basically it's a bank statement, and we have seen a variety or a bank letter um, showing this amount 25,578. Um, I'm really we're not very picky. We've seen bank books, we've seen bank letters, just something that is certified showing that they have that much money in the bank. Something from the bank.
Okay, thank you. It's kind of like a bank reference letter.
Yeah, and it can't be older than 6 months.
Mm,
A lot can happen in 6 months.
yeah, that's right. Okay. Does anyone has any more questions? Just feel free to ask. Yeah.
You can
So
write it in the chat or you can just speak it out.
yeah. So definitely we have new partners on the way. We have our dedicated partners as well. So yeah, this is a refreshment for us. For you, if you have any questions, don't be shy. Just write it out.
You know, something else, you guys do a lot of Australia, right?
Mhm.
Um, here's something that I'm learning more about Australia too, because I have to learn about the competition, right? So one of the one of the advantages, or actually just differences between the Australian system and the US system, students, when they come to Shoreline or they come to a US community college or even a university, they don't start directly in their major. They're starting in general education, so they have that chance to explore a little bit. They don't do their prerequisites for university usually until the second year, unless they're engineering. So engineering has a lot of requirements, so they have to do some of those right away. But in Australia, they have to know what they want to major in, right? And just go right into at least a couple of those major courses. So students can change their major. The second quarter, they can say, oh, I don't like business anymore, or oh, I want to do engineering. It's possible. They can't change like after a whole year. It's probably impossible to get done on time, but we usually start out general anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Maybe just a quick refreshment as well. Uh, in a Shoreline College, you're gonna start at Shoreline and you're gonna transfer to the universities. So it's gonna maybe you can just a little bit refreshment of the 2+2, how it works. Mhm.
Sure. I'm going to share the screen again. So our system is I mean, Shoreline really, we don't have very many professional technical programs except nursing. Our system is really intended for this 2+2. If students went to the university for the first 2 years, or if they went to a community college the first 2 years, they would study the same classes, either place. The end result is exactly the same. They still are going to get that bachelor's degree after they're going to do the first 2 years and then transfer to the university and then have the bachelor's degree from the university. Like I said or a little bit earlier, this process is kind of complex, which is why they have academic advisors to help them guide them through the process. Students will choose anywhere from, depends on the major and how competitive it is, anywhere from 5 to 10 universities to do the application for. And the application process starts in the second year, about 8 months before they would actually be transferring. So November of this year is when the University of California application process starts. And then it goes all the way through. So November 30th to April 15th around. I think some of the high level Ivies are actually quite late in March and April.
Okay.
Does that help? Is that kind of what you wanted?
Yeah, that's true. So maybe some of them are not familiar with the US transfer system as well. So when you start at Shoreline, it doesn't mean that you have to graduate at Shoreline as well. You can transfer to the university that you wanted to. Maybe some students doesn't really have that exact requirement to go directly to their universities. They can start at Shoreline and finish at the same duration. Yeah, of
Hmm.
course, that if the student follows the academic advisors, what they're telling them, what they're advising them as well. Um, Wait, Cynthia, I think we have few questions already as well. So the
Okay.
first one is does American immigration categorize countries like what Australia did by labeling them with levels? For example, below level is level one low risk country, level two medium risk, level three high risk country. Yeah, I don't think so. For visa, yeah.
I I'm not familiar with that system with
Mm.
the high risk. So the State Department has those high risk labels on countries to visit, but have we been labeled high risk? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So for what I know, no. So for international students, they want to apply for US visa, they don't label Indonesia as a high risk country, low risk country. No, they just treat them
Mm.
everyone the same. Just do the interview, right? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the students are getting their visas. So that tells me, I mean, we have 26 new students in this system where suddenly they're not going to give any visas, but Indonesia's doing just fine, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what they are trying to know. And the next one is, has been there any negative impact to F1 visa application since Trump's administration took over, especially with the H-1B visa increase?
That's a good question. Actually, the H-1B visa increase, I don't know the end of that. It keeps changing and it's changed a dozen times. But originally, which is typical with Trump, he has some big temper tantrum and he decides he's going to change something, and then he gets sued and then pulls back from that. By the way, NAFSA, one of our organizations, is suing him about the visa things right now, the duration of status. I don't know if anything will change. So we're just telling you everything, the worst case scenario. Um, but anyway, so he said there was going to be $100,000 fee for the student to get an H-1B visa. And then he said, well, no, then it would be on the employer to do it. And then it changed again to that would only be for people who were coming to the US as immigrants, but not for F1 students. And that's where it is right now that I know of. And so it should not impact um, F1 students.
Okay, but does that affect students who are looking for OPT or CPT? Doesn't really impact anything, right?
Not OPT. Recently, they also changed the CPT. They didn't change them. They're enforcing them. They've always been this way, and Shoreline has always followed them. CPT is something that, which stands for curricular practical training. Um, a lot of universities use that for internships, and actually, it wasn't really, it was kind of a way, or like I don't know how to say it, like a loophole that they were using to do internships. But they're supposed to be a required part of the curriculum. And so Shoreline isn't changing anything because we've never used CPT, but some of the universities are having to look more carefully at the CPT. I always tell students to go home to Indonesia to do their internships anyway, because I feel like the internships that they can get with all of the connections that they have at home with their parents and their friends, that they can get a better OPT in Indonesia or like sorry, internship in Indonesia. But
Okay, but for OPT, it's still the same, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And also, I've seen from your slides that they really got a good OPT opportunities in the big companies.
yeah, Microsoft and Amazon are fantastic. T-Mobile actually is, I don't know if you guys know about T-Mobile. T-Mobile is actually a great company for OPT as well. Google, we have a huge Google campus in Seattle, and we have a really big Meta campus in Seattle. So lots of technology. Seattle is one of the next to the Silicon Valley is the highest technology city in the US.
Okay, so maybe some of them is not familiar with OPT. Um, yeah, can you explain it just a little bit compared to,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe they're more
Sure.
familiar with Australian stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So F1 students are not allowed to work off campus. They can work on campus except for OPT, which is optional practical training. And it's a application to the government post graduation. So they post completion, we call it post completion OPT. Once they graduate, so they don't usually do it at the level of Shoreline. Most of our students are not doing OPT because Indonesian students always feel in this big hurry and are going to the university. So usually they do it after the university, but they're still allowed to do one OPT per level. So they could do 1 year of optional practical training after Shoreline, after their associate's degree, another one after their bachelor's. If they got their master's, another one after that, and even PhD, so one per level. If they are a STEM student, they can get what's called a STEM extension, which is 2 additional years. And that's what both Brittany and Stanley did. I showed these pictures earlier. They were able to get a STEM extension and do a full 3 years because they both had STEM related majors. There's a 409, I think. I always say 410 and people correct me. I think it's $409 to for the application fee to the government to do it.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia, for the refreshment for everyone. So, as usual, this is not the end of the session. So, after this, if you still have questions, just feel free to talk to me. And we can also have a further discussion. If you have any case, you have any questions, or you have any prospective students you want to ask specific questions about them, just feel free to chat. And if needed, I can connect to Cynthia as well, just to double check everything. We're working closely together, and she's a very fast response, despite she's always traveling to any country in the world.
uh, and maybe not any country, but I'm in Jakarta a lot. I'm in Indonesia 4 times a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I believe you're gonna come to us again on October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So just I'm gonna say thank you very much for the time, Cynthia. I know it's evening time for you. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me and the opportunity. And thank you everybody for listening. And I'll save this as a PDF and I'll send it to you.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for the time. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.